Stop whatever you are doing. Ripple might be about to drop the biggest IPO bomb since blockchain bread. And the price tag could actually blow past Saudi Aramco. But here is the kicker. The company isn't even in a hurry to go public. Okay, so picture me pacing my apartment at 2 a.m. Half kind of finished espresso in hand, scrolling X because sleep is for bears. Now I stumble on former Ripple director 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗔𝗥𝗘's late night post. Now he's casually throwing out numbers like a crypto kind of mathematician on a karaoke night. $175 per share, $700 million buyback, and wild-eyed $30 billion valuation. Now my jaw, that is, it hits the keyboard hard, so hard that my cat even thinks that I minted a new coin. So this might, of course, just shock you, but I am not a financial advisor and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile and you could lose all the money that you invest. You should definitely be doing your own research and consult a qualified professional. Your investments are entirely your responsibility and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses. And today's video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Okay, so now with all that kind of legal mouthful all out of the way, let's buckle up because I'm about to tell you why this $30 billion figure is either the most brilliant chess move in fintech or the loudest mic drop in IPO history. And yes, if you want to dissect charts and news like this together, then hop into the free educational Discord server. The link is chilling in the description. We're going to nerd out about these kind of things every single day, and no, you don't need to know the secret crypto handshake to get in. So here is kind of what sent crypto Twitter into hyper vent mode the other day. Now, Ripple announced a kind of tender offer, corporate speak, for buying back its own shares, at least from early investors at a very set price of $175 a pop. So the total buyback size here is a casual $700 million. No confetti cannons, there's no brass band, just a quiet email to shareholders saying, hey fam, we'll take those shares back now, thanks. So let's do the math together because who doesn't love napkin algebra? Now you take that $175 and multiply it by roughly 173 million outstanding shares and voila, the big, beautiful $30 billion headline number. So for context, Saudi's Aramco, 2019 IPO raised $25.6 billion. You had, Alibaba who pulled in $21.8 billion in 2014. And even those felt like kind of the Super Bowl kind of meets Comic-Con. Now, Ripple's kind of hypothetical public debut, actually could trump all of them if they even bother showing up to the stock market party, that is. But wait, why now? Why throw that number into the ether, no pun intended there, when the company's already kind of swimming in cash reserves deep enough to make, Scrooge McDuck really jealous? And you got to remember, Ripple just kind of forked out $1.25 billion to acquire Hidden Road and even kicked the tires on buying Circle, back before Circle did its own public, dance. Now, clearly, liquidity, it is not their issue. So I started kind of poking around for clues like a blockchain Sherlock, with caffeine jitters. And the first clue is optics, right? By repurchasing shares at a premium, Ripple signals confidence stronger than The Rock lifting a kind of featherweight barbell. Now, it kind of tells very early investors, we're good. In fact, we're so good, we would rather own more of ourselves. Now that creates a FOMO halo then that you could see from low Earth orbit, and it conveniently anchors a valuation number in the public's psyche long before any S1 filing hits the SEC desk. The second clue is leverage. Now if you're eyeing strategic acquisitions, let's say more regulatory licenses or banking partners across new continents, walking into negotiations with a flashy $30 billion figure taped to your chest gives you, Marvel level swagger. So just imagine Ripple XX, dropping that number in a Zoom call. The jaws meet the floor. The contracts, they actually meet signatures. And the third clue then, that's regulatory chess. Now last year, everyone and their grandma watched the SEC versus Ripple lawsuit like the final finale of a legal drama show. Back then, Mick Bird boldly predicted that Ripple might sidestep US waters and file an IPO abroad by 2025. Fast forward, and he's refreshing his prediction a little bit here. Ripple probably won't file anytime soon. But that kind of makes the tender offer feel less like a pre-IPO warm-up and more like Ripple is planting a "we could if we wanted to" flag in the valley of the unicorns. Now, let's kind of talk about the relatable problem that you and I face as retail onlookers. Now, we can't touch Ripple equity unless it lists, right? So it's kind of like someone kind of, Temu kind of drops a limited edition sneaker then, right? But you can only only VCs with executive and exclusive invites can actually grab a pair. Now that kind of scarcity, it triggers our inner human condition, the fear of missing out, FOMO. So we kind of scroll, we whisper in Discord, and we dream of what that $30 billion IPO pop could do to the XRP's kind of street cred. And here is where the stats kind of slap perspective into the hype. Now globally, IPO activity kind of slowed to a crawl in 2023 and early 2024, with proceeds down roughly 45% from the 2021 peak, according to EY data. Now investors, they want profitability, not just kind of shiny logos. Ripple, of course, unlike many moonshot startups, actually boasts double-digit revenue growth from its payment corridors and on-demand liquidity rails. Now, RippleNet's transaction volume reportedly ballooned to $30 billion plus last year, and that's not kind of chump change. But will legacy, market gatekeepers price, that growth at a lofty multiple? That's the interesting question. And so enter the narrative climax. Ripple hints it could out IPO Aramco. Oil versus blockchain, right? Traditional finance sees the kind of wormhole kind of distort here. So what was kind of once the domain of fossil fuel kind of giants, it actually could be captured by a company born from cryptographic ledgers. So just imagine here that CNBC anchors are trying to kind of fit XRP ledger and largest IPO ever into just one sentence without, their kind of teleprompters short-circuiting. But crescendo moment aside, let's slap on our rational hats here. $30 billion is huge, yes, but by tech unicorn kind of yardsticks, it's not impossibly huge. Now, PayPal's market cap is around $80 billion these days. Coinbase's, well, that kind of fluctuates, but often above $40 billion. So Ripple's at kind of $30 billion doesn't require a lot of alien math. It just demands faith that global cross-border payments are ready for blockchain rails. And while lawsuits have hampered XRP's US adoption, the rest of the world has quietly been vibing with it. Japan's SBI remit, for instance, uses Ripple to shuffle yen to the Philippines within seconds. Anecdote time, right? Last month, I needed to send rent money to a friend in another country. Long story involving a broken Airbnb espresso machine. Anyway, my bank quoted me 3 days Swift delay and a sneaky 3% FX fee. Now, my friend joked, just XRP me. Sadly, the rails weren't available in my region, so I ate the bank fee like a soggy tortilla chip. Now, that's the everyday pain point that Ripple loves to kind of wave in front of CFOs. Legacy payments feel like dial-up in a fiber optic age. So if Ripple can, keep scaling ODL corridors, a fat valuation starts looking less like hype and more like overdue recognition. But let's face address the dragon in the room. Right, the SEC. Yes, Ripple won partial victories, and yes, some rulings clarified XRP status, yet regulatory déjà vu kind of lurks. Now, an IPO, especially in the US, means diving headfirst into more compliance sharks, which begs the question, why even bother? Right, Ripple could stay private. They could keep hoarding profit and issue tender offers every few years like a kind of fintech opera. Now, you kind of get liquidity, you get liquidity. Shareholders stay happy for everything, right? Now, Ripple, of course, could just avoid all of those quarterly earning kind of circus. On the flip side, though, going public lends credibility. It unlocks broader capital pools and places Ripple's boardroom under the kind of bright lights of public governance. Transparency can woo big ticket clients, so let's think central bank level big, who kind of appreciate audited financials. So maybe the tender offer is Ripple turning the kind of orchestra, or at least tuning the orchestra before the IPO actually kicks off, right? And maybe it's them just buying back shares now so that they can resell them at a higher IPO price later. Right, like flipping real estate, but with kind of less drywall. Okay, so here's a quick kind of timeline recap so that your mental roadmap doesn't look like a spaghetti code. Now, 2014, Alibaba raised $21.8 billion, the biggest tech IPO at the time. 2019, Saudi Aramco smashes records, raising $25.6 billion. Then kind of green shoes up to $29.4 billion. Now, 2021, Coinbase lists directly, right? The first pure play crypto exchange on NASDAQ, right? Valuations high of nearly $100 billion before cooling off. Now, June 14th, 2025, right? Sean McBurd kind of plugs Ripple's implied $30 billion figure, calling it unreal. So do you see the patterns here, right? Each mega IPO kind of up to the ante, right? Ripple's number jumps the queue entirely. No single crypto service company has tried to climb that high at kind of debut. Even FTX's private valuation, it kind of peaked at 32 billion, then crashed harder than my Wi-Fi during a live stream. So investors will ask, are we looking at the next Coinbase or the next kind of cautionary tale? Now, before you rage click the comments, let me kind of tell you the weirder kind of silver lining that no one's actually talking about here. While so many startups chase valuations, Ripple is busy playing Monopoly with actual revenue. Now, their kind of bookings from enterprise payment flows, license fees and institutional deals rumored to exceed 9 figures annually. They're not burning venture cash to keep the lights on here. They're actually buying billion-dollar companies. That kind of flips the typical IPO for survival cash narrative on its head. Now, Ripple's IPO, if and when it happens, would be more like a flex than a fundraising necessity. And of course, speaking of flexes, if you want a brutally honest trading platform that doesn't trip over itself when volatility spikes, I use the Bluefin crypto exchange. But for quick transparency, the link that's in the description is an affiliate link, meaning that if you sign up, a slice of the fee, pie, actually supports the channel here and fuels my caffeine habit. There's no extra cost to you, but it does help me keep uncovering rabbit holes like this one. So, where does all of this leave us humble retail dreamers? Well, let's kind of map out 3 different scenarios then. Right, IPO late 2025 abroad, right? Ripple files in London, Singapore, or maybe even here in the UAE, bypassing SEC politics, listing kind of pops maybe because global investors finally get equity exposure, right? XRP rides the PR wave, maybe not price correlated 1-to-1, but psychologically bullish. IPO 2026 plus in the US, and then by then, more crypto-friendly congressional bills pass, SEC guidelines are clearer, and Ripple opens the kind of 𝗕𝗪𝗀𝗧𝗧 on financials, right? It reveals a kind of bat cave of cash, valuations adjust but remain pretty hefty. Option 3, no IPO. Ripple remains a private titan, right? Doing kind of buybacks occasionally, maybe offers kind of tokenized equity to accredited investors on a blockchain secondary market. The scarcity of shares become an absolute legend, like the one ring to at least kind of fintech them all. In any scenario, the $175 tender offer sets a kind of reference point. It tells early investors you're sitting on a gold-plated seat. Don't stand up too soon, and it also kind of gives journalists like me and the channel here a bit of a juicy number to kind of throw around on the thumbnails. Though YouTube, if you're watching, it's not a guaranteed future price, so please don't demonetize the video. I know that you're into that these days. Now, let's kind of zoom back to the kind of drone-eyed view and kind of talk personal psyche then, right? Now, I know plenty of XRP holders who've been camping here since 2017. They've watched SEC battles, on-off exchange delistings, and price swings wilder than a toddler on soda. So, to them, a Ripple IPO feels like validation. Finally, the mothership, would show its balance sheets, ring that bell, and prove the naysayers wrong. Yet some fear dilution, new stock overshadowing the token. Now, I get that anxiety. Now, remember when Coinbase listed? Coin stock became the water cooler ticker while Bitcoin kind of went about its day. But Bitcoin didn't explode or implode because of Coin. It just kept vibing on its own macro beat. Now, XRP would likely do the same. Okay, it's time for a humor break. Imagine Ripple's IPO Roadshow then. Brad Garlinghouse striding into a packed ballroom. Slides clicking like a metronome, right? And then first slide is a giant Swift wire transfer tortoise wearing sunglasses. The next slide, an XRP ledger, rocket, kind of leaving the tortoise clocking the moon dust. You can cue investor chuckles and kind of cue compliance officer kind of face palms. But jokes aside, of course, Ripple's leadership has proven one thing. It's tenacy, right? They thought the SEC longer than I've kept a New Year's resolution. They are comfortably being uncomfortable, and at least their ethos, I should say, it tends to kind of resonate with institutions craving innovation but are allergic to uncertainty. So if bigger banks can see the company's audited numbers and war chest, the network effect could snowball. More banks could integrate ODL, more corridors could spin up, volume could climb, and suddenly the $30 billion valuation seems conservative. Or worst case, regulatory headwinds intensify, and the figure just deflates faster than a meme coin after the celebrity endorsement. Of course, investing, people, is not baseball. There are far more than just 3 strikes. Okay, so let's sprinkle in one more, relatable anecdote before we wrap up today. Now, a buddy of mine kind of works in corporate treasury. Yes, spreadsheets till dawn. Now, he once confessed the worst part of cross-border payroll isn't the fees, it's the unpredictability of it all. Now, an IPO could make Ripple's tech feel legit to conservative kind of treasurers like him, and they might actually adopt XRP just outright. Demand could shift. But IPO or not, what matters more is utility uptake here. Now, if companies move real money through RippleNet daily, the valuation will have a bedrock. Otherwise, it's just numbers scribbled on a whiteboard. Okay, it's time to breathe here. We've kind of trekked from midnight tweets to trillion-dollar market cap hypotheses. What's our kind of compass reading after all of this hike then? Well, we have 3 takeaways, right? Tender offers aren't just share buybacks. They're smoke signals about internal confidence. Now, a $30 billion IPO is not fantasy math in today's fintech landscape, but regulatory clarity remains the bouncer at the club door. And then third, we've got the retail investors, and they can't snag a seat at the Ripple's equity table just yet. But that scarcity itself keeps the narrative quite spicy, and sometimes that's half the battle in crypto storytelling. Now, if you found your brain kind of doing backflips during this deep dive, smash that like so that the algorithm knows that we're cooking. And if you want to kind of nerd out in real time, remember that our free educational Discord is just one click away in the description. We break down the news, the charts, and even the kind of occasional dad joke, honestly. And hey, before you all jet off, if you are hunting for a trading platform with advanced tools and actual human customer support, then check out Blowfin. The link below, yes, it is an affiliate link, and yes, it supports the channel here, and yes, it keeps my espresso machine running when markets open at 3 a.m. local time. Now, Ripple may or may not file that kind of historic IPO tomorrow. Maybe not even next year or even ever, but you can bet that I'll be here connecting the dots, occasionally missing some sleep, and all to kind of keep you ahead of the ripple effects. If you're hungry for the next adventure, hit the subscribe and I'll catch you in the next video.